Hello everyone, welcome to the Pushing Hajam podcast. This is your host Ash. What I love about this conversation was just the raw honesty around pushing yourself to the new limits. Here's a guy who wasn't even a runner until his late 20s, went all in on triathlon, made it to the freaking Ironman World Championships, then decides that it wasn't enough. He steps into ultras, grinds through the learning curve, and now here we are, talking about winning the Sedona 125 and talking about running 250 miler next year. What I respect most is not about some ego driven goals, it's about curiosity. Like, what else am I capable of? It's about staying calm when it gets dark, figuring it out when your body wants to quit, and actually enjoying the process. I think that's the part a lot of people miss. It's not really about chasing medals. It's about learning how deep can you go and come out stronger. So yeah, listen to this episode. Take what you can from it and see what's possible for you. It doesn't have to be a 250-mile race, but it should scare you a little. If it doesn't, it's probably not big enough. So let's get right into it, and please let me introduce to our guest today. Hey Nick, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I've been watching your journey and it's really inspiring, and looking at his race results, you've been pretty much kicking ass. And thank you for your time. California morning, 8 a.m. Glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
I only know you briefly. I just looked at your race profiles and how you did. You obviously run Cocodona Sedona 125. So can you please give a quick introduction about you? Who is Nick?
Yeah, so I'm 34 years old, living in California. I've been doing ultra races for about 4 now or so. Before that, I was pretty heavily into triathlon and Ironman, and ended up going to the World Championship in Ironman. And after that, I kind of was looking for something new and was always attracted to ultra and just the excitement, exploration that those races kind of had around them. Made my transition after finishing the Ironman World Championship, just full board into ultras, and been doing it pretty intensely for the last 4 years now.
So you said you transitioned from Ironman Championship to the Ultras, but what aspect of Ultras like drawn you, because you did so much endurance training, and triathlon is very hard. Like doing Ironman is hard because you have to swim, you have to bike, and then you have to run of course.
Yeah.
So what made you drawn towards the Ultra?
Something different about the ultras is just with the Ironman, it's like a set distance. We be able to do it in 9 to 10 hours, and it was a hard day, but the attraction with the ultras was you could go even farther than that. So it's once you pushed yourself to 10 hours and you made it through it, you survived. What can you keep doing? And I think ultra provided a platform for that. There's 50Ks, 100Ks, 100 milers, so you can go well beyond that 10 hours. And I think that's something that excited me, and I wanted to see what that was like and if I could go there as well.
And like when you were doing all these kind of things, did you have this love for running, or that came after you started doing the ultras?
Yeah, I didn't really start running until I was about 21, 22. I didn't really do much sport when I was younger. I did some skateboarding, but running was something I picked up prior to triathlon. I started getting into that, did a half marathon, and my brother was getting into half Ironmans and triathlon and stuff like that. And I think that was something that we fell in together. I followed his footsteps, and I liked cycling and didn't really like swimming that much, but it was part of it, so I had to do it. But running was, I don't know, probably my favorite aspect of the three, and especially when you go out and do the trails and do a couple of training runs on the trails compared to the road. That was something that excited me because you gotta be out in nature. You had the elevation gain, and got to see a lot of cool sights. And I think that's kind of why I gravitated more towards that once I finished up my triathlon days.
You used to do the triathlon. Ironman, that's like big ask for the body because it's very demanding and like one of the hardest endurance sports. And then you're doing now these 100 milers, 125 milers, which is harder in the same level. So what differences or like or similarities are there between two sports that you have done?
Definitely, they both require a lot of training. I still do a lot of cycling, indoor cycling, because I think there's a lot of benefit that adds to your running. I could have lower volume weeks while doing triathlon, but still have really good marathon times or be able to push past the marathon. So I think my background in triathlon has definitely helped me with my ultra running. I do a lot of similar workouts, and it's given me a base and a level of confidence going into those longer days. Just being able to stay calm and continue to push yourself when it gets hard.
Can you remember the first ultra that you did after you were done with the triathlon championship, Ironman championship? How was that first experience with your ultra? And did you had any influencers in terms of running when you got into ultras, or you just like came and into the sport?
Yeah, I think my biggest influence on endurance sports was probably my brother. He got into it first, and it was something that we could really bond on and do together. And prior to getting into ultras, I didn't really know of any ultra runners that I like looked up to or anything like that. I learned about them all after I got into the sport. So I think just like my main influence on endurance sports was probably be my older brother Chris.
Does he also do ultramarathon now? So he's still doing the Ironman championship.
He still cycles quite a bit. He's had 2 kids now, so he doesn't do as much racing. Maybe one day we might get back into it. We did one 50K together probably back in 2020 or something like that. But he's mostly just does road cycling now.
And now going back into this one of the toughest races, Cocodona Sedona 125. Did you had some training or any other races prior leading to this event?
Yeah, I think so last year I did a Javelina 100 back in October. And I think cause or prior to that, I did the Sedona 125 last year as well, and didn't really have the race I wanted to. I was pretty stoked on coming back and giving another shot after learning everything I did that year, and so took a little bit of time off and then started training for Javelina just as in to get another 100-miler under my belt before I went for Sedona again. Had a really good training block up to that. Did pretty well there. I think I came in a little over 17 hours, which was my fastest 100, and had a good day overall. No real blowups or anything like that. And so just kept building off that momentum, putting up, a lot of climbing and training in December, January, and was supposed to do Lake Sonoma 100 miler. Entered that, but we had a bridge that got washed out, and so it ended up only being 100K. But I think I got sixth place there, and then took 2 weeks off, went on a trip, and came back, and I was signed up for another 100K out in Malibu, Sean O'Brien 100K. And so went into that just kind of wanted to have fun and not really expecting too much since I hadn't been training the last 2 weeks. I ended up getting second there. Started out and just worked my way back up from the back, the mid pack or so. And so that was kind of like the start of my training block up to Sonora 125, and was probably able to put together probably one of my best training blocks I've ever done. Had about 10, 11 weeks and peaked out at 400 plus mile weeks where I did a 50-mile training run, did this big loop out in Ojai, California. And then from there, just tapered off a little bit and just probably came into the race feeling ready physically. But I think it's also about being mentally ready and taking what I learned last year, just going into it basically as calm as I could be and not getting overly excited in the beginning and just flowing with the day and see where it went. And if I found myself in contention for a podium or a place, then I would push myself towards the end. But I wasn't really, running off the gun to go for first place in the beginning. I wanted to kind of see where I was at 80 miles in, and if I had a chance to do something at that point, then I was going to go for it. And luckily, things aligned for me at that point.
And when you go and toe the start line, right? Do you see yourself as a racer, or you are the one who is just like I'm just gonna enjoy this, and then I'm gonna have fun?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is to go out there and have fun. And if I find myself in a position to race, then I really love to do that as well. I like to hunt from the back, so to speak. I'm never really going to run into first place off the gun. It's not really my style, but I do like to chase. And if I have someone in front of me or that carrot dangling, then I'm going to go after it. But biggest thing for me is just to go out there and have fun and kind of see where the day takes me. And if I'm feeling good, then I'm ready to push at that point.
And like you said, you did it last year too. So coming to this year, when you did the Sedona 125, what was your goal? Was it just to finish it, or were you here to compete because you learned so many things last year? And when you came this time, do you wanted to win it?
Yeah, this coming into it this year, I definitely wanted to improve on last year's time. There was some mistakes I knew I made, and I was still able to pull off a 10th place finish last year. But for me, it wasn't the race I knew I could have. And so this year, just taking what I learned from last year, don't go out too hard. It's going to be hot. So cool yourself, pace yourself, and yeah, just yeah, not fall into the same traps as I did last year. And I think I did a pretty good job. I mean, it wasn't a perfect race. I had hiccups here and there. But I definitely think I was able to stay calm throughout it and make the right decisions when things did get hard. And I think that overall paid off for me.
Compared to last year, what was the things that you did right this time in this race?
This time I was pretty happy with how I paced myself and didn't let myself spiral when things got hard. Last year by mile 40, I was toast. Like it was much harder last year, and I wasn't cool on myself. I wasn't taking care of myself on fluids and things like that. And so by mile 40, I was in a real bad place. And I just kept thinking to myself, like, how am I going to make it another 80 miles if I'm already feeling this bad? And this year, when things got hard, I just was looking for the solution instead of worrying about how bad I was feeling. I think if we can control our mind in those moments, that's when you're going to be able to find a way out of the hole.
Can you walk us through the hardest climb in this particular race and then the lowest moment you had when you were going through?
I think probably the hardest part of the day for me was around mile 40. After we hit the Sedona aid station there, I was feeling pretty good, but then I tried to put too much food in my stomach. I had tried to drink a shake and had soda and just put too much in myself. And I had to worry, like, oh man, I hope it doesn't come up. And left the aid station, and not 2 minutes later, I ended up throwing up everything I had in my stomach. And from that point, I knew that wasn't good because I was going in to the biggest climb of the day and kind of a pretty technical section through Hangover Trail and up the climb out of Sedona. And so at that point, I started cramping as I was going over Hangover and just slowed down. And I really tried to take in as much as I could, as much salt as I could, as much fluid and nutrition as I could, just to bring myself back from having just thrown everything up. Ended up walking a huge part of that section, probably at least half of it, walked the whole climb. So that was tough, but I just tried to stay calm and not let my mind take me away, and just tried to take care of myself. And I knew if I did that, then eventually I should be able to come around. And luckily that's what happened. I was able to get through that climb, and once I got to the next aid station around mile 52, I was able to get enough food and salt and everything back into me to where I was able to start running and get back going again.
How critical it is that when you go through these low phases during a race, obviously it's a huge amount of time, right? Even if you're done, you can, like you said, you can come back and win the thing you did, obviously. So how important it is to not lose focus when you are going through these drop pads, and when you are going through these low phases, do you always think it's going to be okay in a bit? So how is the mental preparation when you're going through this?
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing about ultras. It's such a long race that you can have hours of low times, and as long as you don't fall trapped to that or spiral and try to assess like what you need to what you're lacking or what's hurting or that sort of thing. I think if you're able to focus on that and try to take care of those things, then you absolutely have a chance to be able to come back. You go through highs and lows, and um, one thing I always tell myself is that it's not always going to get worse. At some point, it's going to turn around and you're going to feel better. And so you're going to have to push through those times where you're not feeling so great because on the other side of that, you're eventually going to come back around. So just trying to remember that and not spiral on those dark moments.
You had these dark moments in this race. So, what was your feeling when you crossed the finish line? And winning is obviously, was it compared to
Yeah,
last year? Was it like a relief, you were joy, or just you're like pure exhausted?
I felt actually pretty good when I finished. I think it was just because I was running on a high and I couldn't really believe what was happening. And I even ended up missing the very last aid station. Like I didn't realize it was an aid station and ran by it. And so at that point, after I passed that, I was just like, I need to get done because I'm thirsty, I'm hungry. But I think, yeah, once I crossed, I was pretty ecstatic. It's kind of like a dream come true. You try to envision what that would be like or what that would feel like. And when you actually get to live out those moments, it's pretty magical. I was definitely tired the rest of the day after, but in that moment, kind of you feel nothing. You're pretty elated.
How does a recovery look like after doing 125?
Yeah, recovery. I had some food, drank a beer, and then kind of went and took a nap for a couple hours. And after I took that nap, I woke up and I was pretty sore. Probably didn't get enough water and back into me. And then took a day or two off, and then by that time I was actually feeling pretty decent again. I tried to move a little bit the next couple of days, try to get a couple miles in just to so things don't stiffen up. But I think recovery overall went pretty well the following couple of days.
I mean, it should be right because you had another 110 mile a week later. So, what was this mindset when you registered for another 110-mile race a week after finishing the Sedona 125?
Yeah, so that's a race that I've done the last couple of years. It's Born to Run 4-day ultra. So it's just kind of like a big party. I don't ever really go there having like any expectation. I wanted to get 100 miles because I had a cool buckle. And so that was like my only real goal was just to go and try to get 100 miles over the 4 days. I was able to do that and one extra, and I was able to do that probably in 2.5 days, and then from there, they had another race, the 30 miler that my girlfriend was in, so I was just there to crew her for her race and just have a good time. So it was a kind of a no pressure thing and felt pretty decent for most of it. The only really issue I had that kind of stopped me and told me to just hang out the rest of the time was I started to get a lot of chafing. So that was hurting me a lot. So I just kind of called it quits once I got to 100 miles and got my buckle.
And how did your body function? Because you just did 125 miler a week earlier, and then you did again 110 miler. So, were you getting any injuries from Sedona, or you were totally fine?
Yeah, I mean, the body felt pretty good other than the chafing. I think everything was fine, on my knees and legs and all that. They held up pretty good. I think after I did that, the next couple weeks was a little bit rough. I think I kind of damaged my nerves a little bit. My leg was and my feet were falling asleep, just kind of sitting or driving in the truck. So I kind of backed off after that for a couple of weeks and I did a couple little light runs every couple of days. But now I'm all good and back to it at this point.
What did it tell you about yourself when you do these two huge distances in 2 weekends? Was it about like when you did these races, was it about just seeing how much your body can take, or what was your plan?
Yeah, I think that Born to run, it gives you a good format to just kind of go out there and see what you can do. There's no you got 4 days to just kind of play around, and I think it's a good platform to be able to play around and dance around that 200-mile distance and with no pressure, and you have a aid station every 10 miles. You can sleep, eat, do whatever you want in those days, and so it gives you kind of like a safe platform to play around with those bigger distances. And I think that's something that's going to be valuable come next year when I've never really done 200 miles or 200 plus miles in a single go. And so this gave me an area to play around with that without, having too much pressure to finish or get to the finish line or get to a certain amount of distance. So it's just a fun event to be able to, go push yourself and have fun with your friends out there.
And how was your mindset between Sedona 125 and the Backyard Ultra that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so I mean, going into Sedona, that was my A race for the year. I wanted to do well there, and that was what my all my training was around. And after that, I was happy with how things went, and just going into the Born to Run, it was all about just having fun. I had no pressure to get to any type of mileage, and I wasn't going to try to win the thing. I was happy with what I had done the week before, and for me, that was the main goal. And I guess the Born to Run was just kind of like the party after Sedona, so didn't really have much pressure on that race, and just went out there and ran some laps with my friends.
And with these two distances, like two races, you did 235 miles combined, and then next year you signed up for Cocodona 250. So
Mhm.
did these two combined races give you like an estimate of how your body can do? And was that the reason that you signed up for it?
I think it shows that I will be able to go that distance and that I can take it. I think it's ultimately gonna come down to pacing and your mindset, and so just like in the other races, just trying to have a good control on those two things, and everything should be okay. There's always going to be hiccups along the way or things you got to problem solve, and having the experience of doing about 200 miles over those two races gives you a good insight on what you're capable, and is a little bit of a confidence booster to know that, hey, you can do two 100-mile races in a week. You should be able to throw that together and be all right.
At this point, as you are looking ahead to Cocodona next year, what is the biggest unknown factor for you?
Biggest unknown factor is probably going to be the whole sleep aspect. I've never really been in a race to where I'm going to have to sleep or take a nap or anything like that to get through it. So I think the biggest question is, when do you do that? How long do you do that? And that's kind of something hard to practice because you don't typically go for 100+ mile training run, or have to sleep through your training runs. So I think that's just going to be kind of something to figure out along the way. And I feel like if I'm tired, I'm going to sleep for a little bit, not too long, but I'm just kind of gonna take it as it comes once I get there.
Yeah, they don't sleep a lot. I can tell you that because I talked with four people. Yeah. Corey, I think he slept for hour and a half, something like that.
uh,
And Harry, he probably slept for similar amount. Jenny also slept for maybe two hours, and Lindsay also slept for the same amount. So they don't really sleep. It's just incredible how
yeah,
people can go into this race and just run. I don't know how to do it because it's hard to just keep running and not sleep.
yeah. I think you're real hyped up on adrenaline and that sort of thing. So I think that's going to keep you pushing. But yeah, it's the big unknown for me. So I'm excited to take myself to that point and see where we go.
So now, in terms of training, what will be the major differences between the Sodana 125 and 250? Obviously, the volume will be different, but how will you train for this sleep deprivation? Are you gonna be planning for some night runs and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I plan on bumping up the volume a little bit more and really focusing on a lot of back-to-back long runs, 2 to 3 days in a row, where you're out there for multiple hours, probably another 50, 60-mile training run sort of thing. But then also, yeah, getting out there when you're tired or after you've had a long day of work or something like that, getting out there and going out there for hours just to kind of be able to get the body used to pushing and running, even though even after you're real tired, and definitely trying to, yeah, get some of those night runs in, or waking up early in the morning and spending a lot of time in the dark, because I think that's a huge thing as well. You're going to have a few nights out there, and so being able to be comfortable in those situations is definitely going to be a benefit, I believe.
Do you feel like you are ready to face this challenge and finish the 250 mile, or are you in this mindset that I'm just gonna see how and just figure it out on the go when it happens?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely excited to go give it a try. There's a lot of excitement around it. It's a pretty awesome course. I've done the back half twice now, so I'm real excited to see what that first half is like. But for me, it's about going out and having fun and seeing what happens and just taking that same mindset. If I find myself in a position to race or go, for whatever place that might be, then I'm going to go for that. But I think always coming into something like that with no pressure and having low expectations or not putting a big expectation on yourself, I think that's when you're gonna probably do your best because you're not worrying about something, all these what could be or ifs, ands, and things like that. So just it'll be my first 200 plus mile race. So going out there and just having fun with it and trying to get through it and have the best time I can out there is really will be my goal for it.
Physically, it is already a daunting task, right? Because you have to run 250 miles. But mentally, it's even tougher. So now, when you think about this running 250 miles, what is the part that scares you the most?
Just the unknown of that distance. It'll be twice as far as I've ever gone before, and so there's probably going to be things that come up or feelings that I have that I've never encountered before. But I think that's why we're out there is to be able to face those things head on and grow from any hardships that we have out there. But yeah, it's like it's a big unknown, but that's also what's so exciting about it. It's like it was the same way going into your first 100K, your first 100 miler. What are we possible of, and what's the day going to have in store for us? And so just taking that into those longer distances and just being open to it and knowing that you're going to be out there for a long time and not wishing for it to be over, but just enjoying those moments that you're having out there because I think they're all life changing. We're lucky to be able to spend 3-4 days out there on the trail, and it's the only thing we have to worry about or think about. Life's still going on, but for that amount of time, it's a special moment for us to just be out there with nature and ourselves, and pushing through something that's really really difficult.
Like you said, there is a lot of unknown factors for you, and then we talked about earlier on when you did the 125, there were some these dark moments in the race. So, do you have any mantras when you are in these dark races? Obviously, doing 250, there might be something that might come along. So, how will you navigate through that period, and what will you say to yourself?
Yeah, I try to be positive and tell myself like, hey man, you're 80 miles into this race and you're still crushing it. You're still moving. You feel good. Like it's quite incredible, to be in that position and be feeling those ways. And just try not to focus on the bad. Try to problem shoot whatever issue you might be having or the darkness you might be facing, and just be try to stay happy through all of it because it's a once in a lifetime experience. Most people will never be in that position in their life, so be grateful that you get to have those experiences because I think we're really lucky to be able to take ourselves to those places, and so just trying to focus on that and trying to remind myself of other dark times on races or in life that you've gotten through, and that we're all really resilient and we can push through whatever we're facing. And it doesn't always get worse, and so that bright sunrise in the morning is coming eventually. And it's just trying to focus on that, and eventually I think you'll arrive at that place.
When you're running, are you kind of angry? Are you calm? Are you curious when you're running? Like, what are your internal voices when you're running through longer distances?
Yeah, I usually try to stay calm. I think there's definitely certain points in the race, like especially if I'm coming up on someone in front of me or things like that, where I get a little, I want to say angry, but I get competitive and enjoy the chase. I think that's a huge part of racing. It's a lot of excitement, and when you can be behind and gain ground on someone, I think that's very energizing. And so being able to feed off that and push yourself past that and push yourself past those people, I think that's kind of when we find the best in ourselves is when we're in those competitive situations when someone's pushing you or someone's pulling you to pass them or things like that. um, yeah.
And when you are going to the next year and starting that start line, what is your expectation?
I'm trying not to bring too many expectations in. Biggest thing for me is just to be able to finish and get through it. it'll be my first 200. So just, yeah, a lot of unknowns. And I just want to go out there and have a good time and run with some pacers and uh, see what the rest of the course has to offer. And, just, yeah, enjoy my time out there. I know there'll be a lot of beautiful sights and hard moments, but yeah, just, yeah, see what the trail has to offer for me out there. Try not to have too many
Compared
expectations, really.
compared to your last race, last year's Sedona 125 and this year's Sedona 125, did any of the things in terms of your gels, your gears, those evolved and that made a difference?
Yeah, I think, well, this year I expected to go in having a warmer race like we did last year. And so I was prepared to cool myself a lot better this year with cooling bandanas and ice and really stocking up on that sort of thing every time I left the aid station. Most of my gear was pretty much similar. I think I found some pretty good nutrition that works for me, mostly like liquid calories and gels and things like that. Sometimes towards the end of the race, I'll start eating more solid food. I really like bacon once it gets started getting cold, and I think you can use that protein later on into the race, so utilizing stuff like that at the aid stations. But typically, I'm all on my own nutrition. I don't take too much stuff from the aid station. I like to drink soda because it's a nice change from tailwind or something later on in the race as well. And then this year too, I got like a better headlamp and a waist belt just so I had a little bit more light out there and didn't have to rely on changing batteries so often. Because especially like on that night section, you're running through the coconut forest. It sounds nice, but it's actually very technical. There's lots of rocks, and so being able to light your way a little bit better, I think, is gonna benefit you as you're trying to jump over too many rocks or trip or things like that. But in terms of like overall gear, not too many changes. System that works for me on running pack and lights and nutrition and things like that.
And in terms of your fueling strategy, do you plan it or do you eat when you feel like it? Like you said, you're using a lot of liquid calories, or do you just snack along the way all the time?
Yeah, I have I have a pretty rough plan going into it. I know like laying out the aid station bags and things like that. I know like how many goos or how much tailwind I should be eating along the way. I think I try to stay around that like 80 to 100 grams of carbs an hour type of system. But ultimately, I just kind of go off feel. Like if I feel like I'm overdoing it or I need more, then I'll adjust. I feel like at this point, I do have a pretty good sense of my body, and if I'm feeling one thing, then it might be more salt or less liquid or things like that. So there's always a plan going into it, but I think you have to be willing and know how to adapt when things aren't going to plan. But for the most part, yeah, I carry all my food or I pick stuff up at my drop bags. I don't rely too much on the aid stations for most of my nutrition.
Will it be different for 250 because it's obviously longer distances?
Yeah, I think going into the 250, I think that's kind of where you're going to need more real food. You're not going to have to rely less on, carbohydrate powders or gels or things like that. I think the body's going to want more real food and it's not going to be so fast paced where you'll have time to sit down and have somewhat of a meal type of thing. I think just, yeah, having those whole foods for the longevity of that race is going to help your body hold up. I'll have to practice a little bit, but just, yeah, having more real food and not just drinking the same carb mix or gels because I know that's going to get old after a while.
And do you feel like a food craving when you are running in this long distances? It's like, oh God, I wish I can have this kind of food. Do you have those kind of cravings?
Yeah, I mean, I think I start to crave like more protein, like bacon or burgers or things like that. So I could see, I could see asking my girlfriend to swing by McDonald's or something like that and grab a cheeseburger or something, something that's easy to get down but real calorie dense. May not be the best, healthiest thing for you, but I think it'll be a nice change up from all the sugar you've been eating.
I don't know if you ran with the crew for 125, but I know like a lot of other people who did 250, they ran with the crew. So is that your plan to run with the crew when you do the Cocodona next year?
Yeah, my girlfriend's always my crew captain, so she'll be driving our camper along the way, and she's real good at taking care of all my needs. So shout out to her. She's wonderful. And hoping to have a couple of friends there to pace me on a couple sections. But typically, cruise pretty low. Usually, my girlfriend, me, and my parents, and a pacer or two. But other than that, I don't need a whole lot of support. I think she takes care of me really well, and I think we know what we need in those moments. And I think sometimes the more people you throw into the mix, the more crazy and hectic it can be. So just trying to eliminate any of that chaos, I think, can help your day out.
What's your running shoes when you're doing these distances? What the type of the shoes do you wear?
I usually run with Hoka Tecton 3s is what I ran Sedona 125 in. The first 10 miles I ran in the Tecton 1s just because I know there's a water crossing right there before the first aid station at Dead Horse. And so the plan was just to run in those for 10 miles, cross the water, and switch shoes into the ones that I wanted for the rest of them. And they hold up well for me. They're comfortable. They have a lot of room for my feet to swell and that sort of thing. And then just ran in those the rest of the way. I didn't need to change shoes at all, and was pretty comfortable the whole time.
And now, looking at yourself, right? So you obviously did the Ironman World Championship, and then you moved to ultras, 125, and then now you're moving to 250s. So what's the why behind doing these incredible distances, and why do you why do you do it for yourself? Because these are incredibly hard thing to do. You have put Ironmans are hard, right? And then you did 125, that's incredibly hard, but now you're doing 250. So these are the pain threshold is like 90 degrees on that. So
Yeah.
why?
Um, I mean, for me, I think it's about exploration and diving deep and being able to go into these tough situations. Is I think it's where we learn the most about ourselves, and you want to create a life that you're proud of, and you want to have these great experiences. And I think these ultra races are a great platform for that. We get to see so much in the miles that we're out there, but then we get to feel so much. We get to learn a lot about what things that we can overcome, and I think just at the end of the day, they make you a better person. You're gonna have more appreciation for these moments in our lives, and what and then learn what we're like really truly capable of, and also just the community around it. You meet so many great people. You get to spend some great time with your loved ones, and it's just it's a great thing to experience in my opinion, and it's a blessing to be able to have the health and the resources and the times to be able to do that. And so it just kind of really helps you appreciate life and those things.
After you do Cocodona 250, are you thinking going and doing the Arizona Masters, that is 300 miles, or any other multi-day stages, FKTs and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think I mean, I'll see how this one goes first, but there's definitely a lure to me for those things. I love to be outside. I love to explore the trails and push myself. And yeah, I mean, I don't have too many plans for what's after that. I've been kind of focused and obsessed on this race for the last couple of years, so I'm really excited to finally be able to get to the start line. And depending on how things go, yeah, I mean, I definitely think I can see myself doing other 200s or pushing further. I think one day it would be awesome to go, do one of the long trails like PCT or AT or something like that. And so, yeah, we'll see how this goes, and kind of, I think once you, set one goal and accomplish that goal, I think we're always going to be pushing for what's next, or what other kind of crazy things can I get myself into. So I'm excited to see where the ultra journey takes me, and see what else is in store after that.
And what does success looks like to you in not just in racing but in life too?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think success is all about money or fame or anything like that. I think it's about creating a life that you're happy with, where you can wake up every day and be excited to go to work or spend time with your family or your loved ones, and have a reason to get up and do it every day, and just feeling like you have a purpose and something that drives you to get out of bed. And be that in kind of all aspects of your life and your career, your relationships, and sport. And just trying to improve on all those aspects too, become a better runner, become a better partner, become a better in your career. So just, yeah, trying not to have too much stagnation in life, and um, find a purpose and feel happy about living your day, and accomplishing what you need to every day.
And like you said, you were never into running earlier on in your career when you were young. So going back and looking at that Nick who was the skateboarder who used to do skateboarding, and the Nick now who is
Mhm.
going in and doing Sedona 125 and then Cocodona 250, with that Nick, I believe that you would do all these kind of things.
I don't think so at that point. I mean, I can remember at some point in my life, like even seeing Ironman and just thinking like, wow, those guys are crazy. Like, I mean, running a marathon after riding 112 miles, like, there's no way I would ever want to do that. It just sounds horrible. But I think the more you are open to those sort of things, that's when you really can learn most about yourself, and like find a find a love and find a passion for just bettering yourself. So I think there's points in life where you can say, "Hey, I would never do that," but that's a kind of a closed off mindset. And if you're open to the possibilities of these crazy adventures, or other things, then you don't want to put a limit on yourself. So just trying to have an open mind to some of that stuff, and you really aren't you never know what you're fully capable of unless you give it a swing or take a shot at it. So, and yeah, the skateboarder back then, never thought I would be running 200 miles or 100 miles, but yeah, look at me now. So yeah, I'm excited
Yeah.
to just keep having an open mind and see where I go.
So let's say if somebody is listening to you right now, right? So and they see your progress from doing the Ironman World Championship, which is hard, tougher for a lot of us, even people to do it. And then you did Sedona 125, and now you're doing Cocodona 250. So what would be that one piece of advice to somebody who is listening to you who is scared to get out of their comfort zone, and they are just being okay, just being there. They don't want change. What would be one piece of advice for them?
I would think to just like start small. You're never going to get to that, huge goal within short amount of time. And just knowing that if you're working towards it every single day, whether that's for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, any amount of time, as long as you stay focused on where you want to get to and work on that a little bit every day, I think anything is possible. I think people get intimidated by big goals or doing hard things, but the more you work on it little by little, you gain an understanding of yourself and of what's really possible. And so those big goals down the line, they don't seem intangible. Hard work that they're always gonna you're always be able to work towards that, and eventually you're gonna be able to get to where you want to be. But it's not gonna happen overnight. And so just staying consistent, I think that's a huge thing. If you're working at it every day, well, one day you're gonna get to where you want to be.
All right, beautifully said. Thank you so much. So there are two things left. There is this rapid fire questions. It's stupid, so it might be very cringy. So you can we can just answer whatever comes to your head. First thing,
All right.
have you ever cried on a mid race?
Yeah, I've definitely cried out there. Just with the emotion that comes over you, or seeing something beautiful. I mean, you feel so many emotions out there, and crying's going to be one of them. And that's not a bad thing.
Which hurts more, blisters on your foot or chafing in weird places?
Probably chafing in weird places.
If ultra running was illegal, what sports would you take instead?
Probably have to go back to skateboarding, or maybe go back to cycling.
One food you pretend to like because other runners love it.
One food, maybe quesadillas. I mean, I like quesadillas, but not during a race.
Have you ever hallucinated during a race? And what did you see?
I've never got there yet, so maybe that'll come when I do Cocodona next year.
Weirdest thing you have ever eaten during an ultra?
Weirdest thing I've ever eaten during an ultra. I don't know. I can't say I've really eaten too many weird things. I try to keep it normal, honestly, so I don't throw a wrench on my stomach or something like that. So I keep it pretty bland.
What's your secret guilty pleasure song on your running playlist?
Ooh, a lot of like heavy metal and rock and roll and that sort of thing gets me pretty amped up. Typically, I'll race with no music. I like to just be in my own thoughts out there. I only really listen to music when I do runs at home or that sort of thing. But whenever I'm racing, I got no music or nothing in my ears.
All right, one final thing I have left, and I ask this to everybody who has come onto the show. So I would like you to finish this sentence for me. Running has changed my life because.
Running's changed my life because it's given me something to strive for every day, and I think it helps me with my mental health, physical health. It's introduced me to a lot of great people and gives me something to do to spend time with my partner and my friends, and it gets me outside, which I think that's a huge part in life, getting outside to experience all the trails out there, all the beautiful sights, all the animals. It's become a huge part of my life these days, so I, I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you taking your time and sitting here and sharing your journey, all of your experience. And I'm going to be looking at your races now and see how you do. And I'll be rooting for you in the future races.
Thank you, Ash. I appreciate you having me on. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Thank you so much. And we'll see you again after the next race where you kick ass, win something, and then we can talk about. Regardless, we'll just talk about your next experience.
Sounds great. I look forward to it.
Hey everyone, thank you for making it to the end of the podcast. I hope you really enjoyed this conversation. I'll see you again next time with another guest. Until then, happy running.